Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of The Boys Season 2 on Amazon. And though I did enjoy this season, I do not think it was a good season. And I think that it has really gotten into some inherent problems with what's going on with this show. Now, for me to kind of explain that and kind of set this up, I'm going to use the two prime examples of TV shows that I've seen this kind of thing happen for. So, we had the first season, and to me, it seemed a little bit easier to follow because there was more of an overarching arc. But the thing is, you kind of heard about the show because of the weird kind of gross out moments that would sometimes happen and how kind of depraved it could be. And I think that what happened in this season is that they turned that to 11 because they're like, oh, those people wanted on with that. That's really kind of reminiscent of what happened with kind of the show Preacher that I reviewed and Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones with like the shocking deaths to the point of like if we start killing everybody that everybody kind of likes, it's going to be hard to find a kind of protagonist kind of approach. Now granted, that's also a kind of issue with the Game of Thrones books as well. I'm not saying you can't have death, but you have to not go overboard and kill everybody willy-nilly, otherwise you're going to start running into completely giant narrative problems. The second show, Preacher, really closely follows my problems that have occurred with this show, mainly of escalation. What I mean by this is the first season of Preacher was fucking nutballs insane, to the point of like you have an escalation problem. If you go from 0 to 100, you have to keep pushing that. You have to be careful in how you work that kind of rev up. Otherwise, people are going to kind of be desensitized if you keep going from 0 to 100 and just knocking in or trying to go even faster, because as you keep getting faster, you get the amount that you get from that speed decreases. It's that the utility that you get from each successive unit diminishes. So it's like, okay, I don't have any donuts, but if somebody gives me 2 donuts, I'm happy and I've got a great utility from that. But granted, if I've eaten those 2 donuts and somebody gives me 3 donuts, I'm going to derive less utility and less happiness from those donuts because I've already had 2 donuts. Yes, you're giving me some more, but I'm not going to be like, oh shit, I didn't have any donuts, and now I've got donuts. But that's kind of what happened with Preacher, where they went woof, and then I got to the second season, the first episode was like cool, and then it's like woo, it didn't really figure out how to kind of balance itself, because when you build yourself on kind of like a shock value kind of thing, you then think that you got to continuously shock people with the weirdest and most gross out moments. And that pretty much becomes my crux of the problem with The Boys Season 2. I mean, we're going to dive into what happens in the show, but the most standout moments are the different kind of shocking and gruesome kind of either deaths, dismemberments, or disfigurements, or strange fucking things that you see, rather than the actual plot. They're like, people are coming for this stuff, and it's like, the way you want to handle shock and strange ass things and gross out things is you want to have them as effectively utilized as possible. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And I know I've been talking about a lot of different TV shows and really going in depth with that kind of thing, but to get to this point, it really was all over the place storyline wise with what was going on in this season. So much so that I would say that this is a show of a lot of different stories that are about an inch deep, and that most of the stuff that needed to be explored wasn't, and some of the stuff that was explored in pretty much the same kind of ways that we had already seen either in the other season, or we just get repeats happening. Don't get me wrong, I am into character development, story movement, and progression. But if the thing is you keep showing me something that I've already seen to try and hammer something home, it's just going to get repetitious, and I'm like, you could have better used this time going on. Case in point, there's the reoccurring motif of Homelander doing stuff with milk because he has a warped fucking relationship with it. We see him getting off on finding like Stillwell's breast milk in one office. We see him drinking from a container of milk disgustingly, and it's just keep hammering the point. I'm like, we understand this. He has mommy issues. He has sexual weird dysfunction with that, and it really goes into his ego and his whole kind of psychosis and everything. I understand that. I don't need you to go Negan on me from The Walking Dead with Lucille and baseball bat my head in to get that point home. I get it. I got it last season, and I'm like, okay, like, do something with it. Show it either progressing into weirder depths of depravity, or that it's like lessening or whatnot. Just showing it on again and off again just because you can doesn't really help. I mean, like, oh, he's still got a weird fetish ass thing with milk. Got it. I understand that kind of goes against pretty much saying the show don't tell kind of thing, but if you keep showing the same thing, it's like, I got that point. I've seen that rock and I've seen that tree. Ugh. So, let us try and hit most of the points as we can. Now, that's kind of difficult for me to do, because watching this was a strange kind of trip, because I kind of binged a couple of the episodes and then kind of weekly towards the end of it. And I think that really fucked over this show, in at least my watching, in my opinion, because doing that with how these stories are edited really fucking was hard to follow what was going on. Mainly because sometimes we would have a short time with one storyline, move to another, and then the juggling and editing was just like, God, fuck, shit. So much so that it's kind of hard to go episode by episode, and would kind of almost be easier to deal with the story arcs as we have. Now, I understand that some of these story arcs interlock, but it's very hard to have a complete and utter through line of like what the whole arc was for the season, in my opinion. It's very hard because it feels like, okay, usually I have a problem with this show where an arc forces characters to do weird ass fucking things. This time I almost had the opposite, of where every character seems like they're on a side quest, and that it somehow needed to be stitched together to create this Frankenstein arc thing going forward. It was just really kind of weird. So, we start off, and we are pretty much getting back into where the boys that we've been following have been at. And it's really kind of jarring because we ended last season with Butcher and the revelation of Becca being alive, having Homelander's son, and that's kind of where we were at. This does not start off there, and it's really kind of hard to follow. We pretty much still get more stuff of Huey listening to Billy Joel, and god damn it, throughout this whole season, you do get an explanation for why Huey isn't a Billy Joel. But for the love of fuck, it feels like it's just hammered in to almost make Billy Joel music videos of shit going on, and I'm just like, God damn it, I understand that he's in the Billy Joel and everything, but you gotta make it work within the context of the show. It just feels like it's like, plastered on. He likes Billy Joel because of this in his story. Jesus, so much Billy Joel. I don't hate Billy Joel, okay? It's how it's implemented and executed in this season that just... So, we see that they are hiding out pretty much with like these people that Frenchie knows underneath, not really going out, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. MM's got a problem with Huey for some reason, because reasons. Frenchie's trying to figure out ways to do everything, and Huey is pretty much working with Annie to bring down Vought. And their whole plan is pretty much to expose the Compound V and everything going on with that. So they pretty much uh, blackmail this one dude, this one soup, who's pretty much in their research department because he can pretty much cut limbs off and heal and grow and everything like that. We see that he pretty much uses himself as like a fetish dude, so he would like have someone who's like, hey, you want to drop my arm off? Here, give me $500. So Annie pretty much has gone into super cynical mode, pretty much almost like Butcher, and doesn't believe in anything and pretty much blackmails this dude to kind of try and get some form of justice to get the V. We see that this kind of intersects with her kind of dealing with everything at Vought, where A-Train's pretty much back, but he's kind of screwed up and because of his heart and everything, but he's pretty much trying to be all dick mode on him. We see that Homelander is dealing with Edgar and trying to assert himself as, I am the big dick dude. That's pretty much where we go throughout the whole season, but the thing is, we learn that he is a very inept dude at trying to do these kind of political maneuverings. He's got the power to pretty much get people through fear and everything, but he wants love more than anything. He tries to pull this crap on Edgar, but Edgar has gotten Stormfront into the 7 because Deep is pretty much out, so they needed to replace someone. And it's like, okay. And we see that Stormfront is in... Well, with the characterization of what goes on, we are introduced, and she's more of a no-nonsense character, pretty much into social media and kind of memes and stuff like that. And that gets progressively worse as we go throughout the season, but it's kind of start-stops of we see her critiquing the Dawn of the Seven, which is the Justice League homage thing, and be like, oh yeah, this is all crap. A-Train even puts up his crap because he's going to be kicked out because of his heart and everything. This also lines up with stuff that's going on with the boys as they're trying to figure out everything, and it's weird because we got the whole Compound V put out, and then, oh, Huey, this is you and everything, and getting pissed off and everything. It's like, okay, and they need someone else to lead him, and Frenchie gets in contact with Butcher, and MM and Frenchie are more okay with Butcher leading them than Huey. Now, granted, Huey has not done a good job of leading them because they've pretty much been fucking around in a basement for God knows how long. Time is a very fucked up kind of thing going on here. And they're okay with Butcher coming back. Now, granted, before this, it gets really bad to... Well, not before it gets really bad. They're trying to, release the whole Compound V kind of initiate thing. But it also gets kind of warped up in that they're trying to figure out how to do this stuff with the Compound V. At first, they were going to attempt to do it with Raina, but she gets her head popped. It explodes, and they get all freaked out, and they run away. And I'm like, what the fuck? Mind you, we don't get any kind of movement on that head popper until later on in the season. And even then, you really don't get any fucking movement or motivations. It's like, fucking God, why then? Why? So they're trying to figure out what to do with that, and of course Annie leaks it to the press and leaks the whole kind of Vought thing, and they're like, oh shit, everything's kind of going kind of crazy. Soups are made, not born. Everything's kind of nuts. But of course we see that Stormfront keeps kind of being like, hey, why don't we just kind of sell this kind of shit? Edgar does the same kind of thing. Oh, okay, we got these supervillains and everything. Well, let's kind of just put it out there, because the whole supervillain thing gets put in as we see that somebody's taken back to their underground hideout, and they have to deal with this supervillain, and we find out that it is Kimiko's brother, Kenji, and he's got psychic powers. It would stand to reason that people within the same genetic kind of pool would be more susceptible to the use of Compound V to get powers. And pretty much Butcher was going to get ready to kill him, but Kimiko was able to kind of talk to him and kind of figure some stuff out. We learned that she has pretty much gone selectively mute because of everything that happened to their parents being killed and everything, and she's got her own kind of language with Kenji. Let's see here. What else? I'm sorry this is so kind of discombobulated, but the way this season went, it's very fucking hard to kind of nail down the things. You have to kind of get through them as they're globular coming in. So they got Kenji, and they're able. He was going to like go crazy and go to the back to the kind of liberation people and kind of take down Vought and, of course, the USA because of everything that had been going on with Vought and their superheroes and all that. And we see all different kind of things going on. We see that Black Noir had taken out one of the supervillains, even though they would be probably consider themselves superheroes, which that isn't even really delved into. I would have liked to have seen that aspect of, hey, all these superheroes that are U.S. based, are they considered terrorists in other countries or supervillains in other countries? Would these supervillains that we see from our perspective be considered heroes to their perspective? That would have been a kind of cool ass fucking thing to kind of get into and everything. But it really isn't. We just see Black Noir fucking take this one dude out and be okay with a kid and see that he's got regenerative properties. Don't worry, his stupidness gets fucking tanked out to like the extreme towards the end. This is not going to be following the comic books with what's been going on. Now granted, I'm going to theorize some interesting things that they could do if they want to go good writing, but this... Alright. So, they've got Kenji. They're pretty much going to link up with Mallory to kind of give them the soup, so that way everything's kind of set up. That was kind of where they were working with on Reina. She was like, oh, I kind of got this kind of thing. Alright, I understand this. And then pop. It's like, oh shit. But this is to pretty much get Becca's location because Homelander, for some odd goddamn motherfucking reason, plot armor, if you're really going to get into it, the plot demands it, decided not to fucking kill Billy Butcher and instead just be like, hey, let's blame him for Stillwell's murder. And drops him like in the middle of bumfuck fucking nowhere. He goes into a restaurant, like, where the fuck am I? And they're like, you're fucking here. And then it's like, you're on the TV too. So he takes a fucking kids thing and tries to draw out and everything to remember everything where Becca's at. Ugh. So they're doing all that stuff, but the thing is, Butcher fucking stole a boat, and the police were like, you stole that boat! And then fucking shit got real, and the fucking brother got out of his restraints. It's like, fuck this helicopter! Boom! And then they're like, shit! And we see that the Deep is trying to get his way back into the Seven, which, by the way, is the stupidest of subplots, and really should have been fucking cut. Because his whole fucking thing is getting into a church that's like Scientology, where he takes some fucking drugs and hallucinates that his gills are talking to him and saying, no, be okay with your body, man. I don't mind that, but it takes up valuable time for other things that would have been better used. Or, if you're going to do this, develop more time to it and actually beef it the fuck up. Otherwise, he is just the most useless goddamn fucking thing. Except for just some gross out moments. We get head popping, we get him driving up with a whale. He intentionally beaches a whale to stop them in their boat from escaping into the sewer system on land. This dude who loves marine life and shit intentionally beaches a whale. Because I'm just thinking, how the fuckity-doo-dah, fuckity-day, is he going to get that fucking thing back in the motherfucking ocean? To emphasize my point. And that really doesn't matter because they just plow into the whale and we see Huey fucking sitting next to a whale's beating heart being like, yeah, I'm fucking kind of done with this. Of course, the other seven are popping up being like, there's a supervillain. We got to take out the boys too. And of course, we see A-Train's kind of getting fucked over with his speed because his heart really can't handle it. Homelander recognizes it. We see that most of them kind of escape, but the thing is, Butcher's willing to leave back Huey, but MM recognizes that Huey is pretty much his canary in the coal mine, so if anything goes wrong with Butcher, Huey's usually the one to kind of bring him back, but he's kind of like fucking breaking. So MM just kind of stays with him in the whale and like, nope, if you're going to get taken, we going to both get taken. He's like, fuck you, man. And they both go in to the sewer. They're like going through. Kimiko's brother fucking rips his way. He's like going around. Well, he's not going around. He's still restrained again at this point until the plot demands otherwise. And we see that Homelander pretty much tries to force Starlight to murder Huey because he doesn't give a shit. And fuck, like, due process and all that kind of noise. We do later see that Homelander pretty much is getting ready to kill her, but she's like, I fucking hate him, pretty much shit. And that kind of works out for her. We see that Kenji pretty much uses his powers, kind of tries to escape, but Stormfront pretty much chases his ass. They have this fucking collateral damage kind of shit's nasty. She starts killing these other civilians around, and they're black. It's like, okay, that kind of seems a little bit weird. And then she's gets Kenji, breaks his hand, like, oh, screw you, you yellow bastard. I'm like, you sound kind of racist, you little weird ass bitch. And she's like using electric powers. She pretty much kind of electrode Kimiko, and she of course survives. She's pissed off that Stormfront killed her brother. Let's see. That's kind of the first kind of major arc-ish stuff. Annie kind of deals with being completely and utterly stressed out and freaked out, wondering when Homelander's going to murder her. Queen Maeve is trying to deal with her whole Elena situation, as Elena has an emergency operation procedure for her appendix, and she was the last kind of like point of contact that she had written down, and she's trying to say that like if Homelander finds out we're together, he's gonna fucking kill you. Basically. The boys are able to kind of get back. Butcher is able to go back out to Becca. It's like, hey, why don't I take you away and everything? They make love and all that kind of stuff, but Becca pretty much rightfully knows that like Butcher will not take Ryan, and she does not want to leave Ryan. We also see that Homelander is trying to build a relationship with Ryan, but is being kind of a dickhole about it, and pretty much tries to figure out how he's got powers, fucking pushing him off the roof. And he's like, no, he's okay. Becca's like, you fucking dick shit. And he's like, oh, fuck you. And Ryan's like, duh! Like, super pushes him away, and his eyes start glowing red and everything. And I'm like, ooh, okay, well, whatever. Fuck you guys. And then leaves. And we're like, okay, cool. Alright. The Becca stuff needed more time and development. I don't say it's completely and utterly bad, but again, it's like fucking really just surface level. And see, the thing is, Butcher's trying to get back, and of course they weren't able to get the supervillain and everything, but she's like, alright, I'm gonna give you this stuff for Becca because you tried, and here, I need you to look into this Liberty superhero who was active in like the 60s, 70s. So we see that Huey, and Stormfront, Starlight, Annie go down and ask this one woman about what's going on with this Liberty chick, and evidently her brother, and she was black, was murdered by Liberty back then. And she's like, no, she's this. And it's like, you mean exactly Stormfront? Oh, that's kind of weird. And of course we see that her true self is pretty much coming through and all that. And we see that kind of with the friction with A-Train as he's getting pushed out of the 7 and he has to say this stupid shit. And we also see that Ashley is trying to handle Homelander, but Homelander's like, no, I handle you. She even like brought somebody to be put into the 7, and he pretty much fucking disables the dude even further because he was a blind dude with like super hearing, and he fucking claps his ass, and he's like, fuck that. And we see her just going mad with him, like, fuck, man, and just going nuts. But we find out, like, okay, something's going on with this Liberty chick if she was able to be active then and looks the same now. And we see that shit kind of starts going crazy with Homelander as he, like, went to go take out the super terrorist and accidentally kills a civilian with his heat ray. And an issue that starts to pop up is that we'll come back to his heat ray vision later because it's going to become important towards the end of the season. So that gets a whole thing. He's losing points and everything, and of course he gets help from Stormfront of using memes and all that, and gets his power back and goes with all the kind of shit she's saying, like, we're not safe and everything. Use Compound V with these people. Doing stuff with like active supervillain drills and all that. It's like, sweet Jesus. A-Train also gets kind of linked up with the Church through the Deep because they want to get back in the 7. Kimiko, for some odd fucked up ball ass reason, in order to get over her brother's death, decides to start accepting contract hit kills. Like, she fucking rips a dude's face off like a goddamn fruit roll-up and fucking kills a dude by stabbing a gun into his head. Frenchie's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm doing whatever I want, man. And he's like, this will not help you. I was like, yeah, I get that. Frenchie gets a good amount of development. So does MM as they're doing their trip down for Liberty, learning that his father had fought a case to try and bring Vought to justice, which of course was passed on to him. He also, Evan also would have kind of OCD tendencies, kind of like MM. And it's like, okay, but I kind of wanted a little bit more. And we see that Frenchie is trying to get closer to Kimiko, but of course at one point in the story it's like, you ain't getting close. And then towards another part of the story, because the plot demands it, they kind of flip and it's like, oh, okay. Now granted, there's a little bit more of a gradient to it because we learn about like Lamplighter and all that kind of stuff, but because there's only 8 episodes, it goes faster, and I wish that its execution was better. It's not a complete, like, I will not tell you anything to, I will tell you everything, but it's kind of close to that kind of effect for me. Let's see. So we got that. We got everything going on with Homelander and his whole kind of issue. We got Congressman Newman trying to push for better oversight with Vought and all of that. And she, of course, is kind of freaked out about Homelander and all that. And she's an interesting character, but she becomes more interesting at the end, but it's still kind of like, what? And we get to the point where we see that Starlight was able to get into Stormfront's trailer and see stuff about this Sage Grove place, and they go in and we see that they're experimenting on people to try and get a stable compound V interaction in adults. So evidently up until this point it's mainly been used on evidently infants and kind of children to their kind of effect to bring everything to work with their superpower wise. And this, they're trying to work on actually having it work on people. And we see that they kind of get in. Q, of course, gets injured in the back end because him, Starlight, and Butcher are back because at one point, the people that are in there, Kimiko, Frenchie, and Mother's Milk, got into a kerfuffle with Lamplighter because they're like, it's a fucking Lamplighter. And because he tried to like toast them, and ensued this giant kind of breakout of all of the mental people. It looked like a mental facility, but it's actually a place where people are being experimented on with Compound V, and all these superpowered people kind of go. And someone who's got similar powers with the head popping, I say that because we've gotten to the end, we know it's not her, is like going around doing shit, and they're like, oh shit! They run around, they're like, alright, we'll fucking work together to get out of this. They get into one spot where Frenchie's trying to make some stuff, and we learn the history with Lamplighter, that they pretty much were trying to blackmail him to get super dirt on supers and to use him against them, and that Frenchie was watching him and tailing him one night, but he had to leave for a little bit because one of his friends overdosed on drugs, and it was the one chick that called him like, you need to get here and save this person, and he's like, fine, fuck, whatever, goes, saves him, and is like, listen, I gotta go. It's like, fine then, leave us, kind of shit. I'm like, what the fuck? And evidently come to find out the dude then, he never saw him again, he left and then overdosed again. I was like, you should have just fucking taken him to a hospital. And evidently he didn't learn the thing because he fucking just completely killed himself. And that, of course, goes to that Lamplighter left that event that Frenchie was tailing him at, went to try and kill Mallory, but instead shish kebabbed, well, not shish kebab, but flamed her grandchildren instead. Which I kind of have some problems with, because I'm like, okay, they went to, he would go to Mallory's house. Why would the grandchildren be in her bed? It's really kind of weird. And it's like, okay, that's kind of a strange mistake to make. And, let's see here. And he evidently was trying to go after Mallory and felt just as bad for killing the children as well. So it's like, oh, okay. Now granted, we're like, oh, okay. we were introduced to this character. They're doing all this kind of stuff to like lay out some backstory. He's morally ambiguous because he's a fucked up kind of superhero. He accidentally killed his grandchildren. What's he gonna do? And then we get into the next episode, and he's pretty much put under witness protection to testify against Vought for all the experiments that they're doing at this place. And he's just watching weird ass fucking porn of superheroes and talking about cucks and shit to Huey. Because Huey got fucking fucked up and was pretty much taken by Starlight and Butcher to a hospital. But in the way, Starlight accidentally killed someone, and we're like, oh, they're getting to be like pretty much the same. It's like, oh, okay. There could have been better ways to do that, but alright. And, oh, by the way, while they were going to escape the facility that they were testing people on, one of the people's superpowers was that his penis essentially pretty much became a tentacle-like appendage that he could like grow, and Mother's Milk got kind of choked out a little bit by the giant penis. Yes. There was nothing more done with it pretty much than he had a giant tentacle penis. I don't mind things like that, and action and gross out shit and everything. Have a story behind it. Have it mean something. That's when it's kind of bad shit. It's just like, it's just a penis. And you're not even really making a joke with him. Like, yeah, he got choked out by a penis. I'm like, where's the joke? It's like, you could do something with it. It's like, you're like, you have this thing on a platter, and you do nothing with it. It's like, but it's there. You do something with it. You could have like such a great joke with it. And I'm like, again, that goes to my irksomeness on when potential is not fully realized. So, let's see. We have the whole Grove thing. We have the whole thing with Lamplighter. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. We're trying to figure out kind of what's going on. We're, of course, getting Nazi-like imagery with Stormfront. That, of course, starts to become really important as we get towards the end, because that's kind of where we're getting at. So we see that Butcher decides to go back to try and get Becca. She's like, no, you're not going to take Ryan with you. I'm not. It's like, damn it. Of course, Black Noir sees this, gets one of the lackeys to kind of figure out what's going on, and tries to go after him. And that leads them to being kind of fucked up in his Aunt Judy's house. And she's selling like pills and shit on the black market because of healthcare and shit. They're pretty much able to work out an arrangement with Edgar to be like, hey, fuck this noise. We got pictures and shit. Fuck you, man. And that sets Black Noir up. That whole situation kind of went, what up? Because Butcher was trying to pretty much retire, and MM and Huey were like, no, what's going on with you, man? Just to try and figure out and help him. He's like, what the hell? Let's see what the whole Lamplighter issue. It really starts getting really weird and muddled and fucked up as shit's going on. There's some side plot stuff with the whole church thing. Really doesn't fucking matter because it's a weird ass business cult. They fuck over one hero that pretty much brought in the Deep, just to show that they're pretty much going to fuck over the Deep again at the end of the season. While, of course, A-Train is being brought in as well because the church wants to extend its influence and all that. They're trying to pretty much make sure that Newman's okay. Annie, of course, is locked up because her mom's a dipshit and pretty much told Ashley where she was because she had taken her chip out, and gets captured and is in the 7th Tower for Vought. And Huey kind of figures that out and pretty much gets Lamplighter to help him, and Lamplighter's like, okay, cool. So they go in, and he's like, alright, you know where that place would be, right? And he's like, yeah. Takes him up to the top floor and self-immolates himself. It's like, wow, that was a big fucking waste of his character. And granted, he did it because he wanted to make his dad proud, and he's like, I killed those kids, I can't do anything better, and just kills himself. I'm like, oh, okay. Huey then fucking chops off his hand because he needs it. Goes down, is able to find Annie's mom. But see, during the whole kerfuffle of the lighting himself on fire, Annie's able to get out. She's up top, but then Black Noir pretty much tries to like kill her. But Maeve comes and like, hey, I'll help you. And then we find out that Black Noir is allergic to tree nuts, and she shoves a fucking almond joy in his mouth to pretty much make him go. And that's the end of Black Noir. No, he doesn't really die, but he's in fucked up critical condition. I was like, that's fucking weird. Let's see here. Crap. Let's see here. This gets really kind of confusing. Just trying to remember what they were trying to do, because Billy goes and talks to his dad because his mom kind of tricked him, and MM and Frenchie are pretty much trying to make sure that Newman's okay, because Soups would be after her because of what she's trying to do to Vought. No, they also go after Vogelbaum. Mallory does, to try and get him to testify. Well, this is pretty much after Lamplighter kills himself. So they do, he says no to Mallory, but Billy is then used to go in and pretty much threatens him. He's like, alright, fine, I'll do it. And Starlight and her mom are able to escape with Huey and all that, and the mom's kind of going into hiding, same with Starlight. And we see that Stormfront and Homelander get together, and she, of course, tells him that she's a Nazi. She was the first pretty much experiment by Friedrich Vought, and she was Vaught's wife, and that she's like pretty much 100 years old. This was her daughter and everything, and they start their relationship as he's like laser beaming her, and they're having giant fucking sex and everything like that. Granted, that kind of happens somewhere in the middle of all this shit, and then we get to a point where Newman is trying to do a testifying thing, and his head gets popped, and all these other people's heads get popped. Fucking even A-Train's fucking replacement's head gets popped, and it just kind of goes crazy. It's like, what the fuck's going on? How's this person able to do this shit? And it's just nutty. So that craziness kind of ensues. A-Train kind of figures out what the problem is with Stormfront, and because the plot demands it, goes into the church and gets pretty much their stuff going on, because the boys at this point are like, we're screwed. We're going to have to like murder pretty much all the Soups and everything. Starlight tries to get Maeve to testify. She's like, fuck your noise. She did get the Deep to pretty much get her the cell phone footage of Homelander letting that plane crash, so that way she's got insurance. Elena's like, I ain't dealing with you, and leaves. So that's why she's kind of all fucked up, and she's like, I've done everything for you. Fuck you, man. Fuck you, Starlight. And I'm like, alright, I get it. I kind of understand that kind of rationale. But they're kind of like, shit, we don't have anyone to testify and everything. And then that's when it's handed in their lap that A-Train was able to find the whole stuff about her being a Nazi and everything like that. Because up to this point, Vought has pretty much been spinning the Compound V VR, not VR, PR into their advantage. And we see that this really starts to go a little bit nutty. We see that Stormfront's trying to contain everything that's going on with the whole Sage Grove thing. Her and Homelander go and pretty much try and turn Ryan against Becca. She, of course, comes to the voice because she's like, I need Ryan back. I want Ryan back. We, of course, see Homelander try and be kind of a father figure to Ryan. You're like, hey, what are you doing there? You could play video games and stuff. He's like, yeah, I'm just writing down the order of the states and everything like that. I like learning and all that. I'm like, that's cool. He's like, hey, how... of course, we see Stormfront trying to be a mom and everything. She had previously had a daughter that died before her, and they try and take him to this like restaurant kind of thing, but of course they're celebrities, and he's never been around crowded people before. He was pissed off at his mom for that kind of stuff, but he's like freaked out and everything, but Homelander recognizes this and takes him to the cabin. Yes, I forgot to mention the cabin where Homelander had been fucking the doppelganger dude and having his milk fetishes going on, until the dude's like, well, it could be you, turns into him, and he fucking kills him. I was like, alright, this is fucking weird. But he gets the kid to calm down. He's trying to get him to have his powers open up and everything. And then, of course, Stormfront's like, hey, just picture someone you really hate. And he's like, I don't really hate anyone. It's like, oh, there's people that are trying to do white genocide and everything like that. I'm like, wow, this is really kind of just surface deep stuff. They do this whole thing with like a radicalization dude where dude's like thinking there's super villains everywhere and shoots this store clerk, and I'm like, I can understand that kind of Nazi radicalization thing, but it's done just so deep, just like inch deep. You need to dive into that more, and also fuck Nazis. So it's like it's just plastered in there. There's like so much shit going on. I'm like, no, you really need to do the due diligence and be like, go into it and be like, fuck this stuff. This is crazy. And you just see this dude wake up, listen to all this Stormfront shit, and then just shoots this dude. It's like, okay, I understand what you're trying to do. You are not doing this well. You are not executing it enough to warrant its inclusion. There's other ways that you could have done this and still say, fuck Nazis. Which, of course, then leads even more into an endgame portion as we get to the end of the series. End of the season. Ugh. So, she's pretty much trying to do that shit to Ryan. Ryan's like, I ain't got shit. And it's kind of funny because they're trying to get him to laser eye fucking deep statue. Oh, action figure. But the thing is, she goes away because they pretty much leak to the press that she's a Nazi and pretty much starts destroying the image and destroying everything what's going on with kind of Vought and her being connected to it. She's like fucking pissed off. But that brings up an even harder kind of thing. You find out that a prominent company that is creating superpowered individuals is founded by a Nazi, and that his wife is still alive and pretty much using Nazi tactics to make more Nazis. Yeah, you have Homelander and shit like that, but that company would have been shut down like fucking fast as motherfucking shit. Right? You know what I mean? It's kind of a loophole at the end of this season. It's like, we found out that this dude was a Nazi and is doing Nazi shit, and his wife was continuing to do Nazi shit. But, I'm not gonna say that's government overreach to shut that fucking shit down and try and, like, figure out what's going on, because, I mean, if they're putting Compound V in, they could be indoctrinating people to doing Nazi shit. Mind control and shit. Okay, so that goes on. We see that Butcher tried to make a deal with Edgar to pretty much give them Ryan because he doesn't give a fuck about the kid. I understand that. But they implement their plan to pretty much try stuff. Frenchie tries to make this thing that was going to try and fuck over Stormfront, but of course it just is used as a Michael Bay explosion and doesn't really do much. They pretty much were able to kind of drive Homelander away from Ryan with like these sonic devices because he's like, just fucking with me. And when it was also fucking with Ryan as well. So they go and they get him to run out. Butcher leaves his phone there. He's like, listen, I gotta go deal with this shit. And it's like, alright, fine, whatever. But Stormfront comes back down, never mind how she fucking finds them, and pretty much starts blasting them. Butcher, Becca, and Ryan run off in the woods. This is an important thing that I need to note. They ran off in some direction that fuck all knows where. But they start to try to figure out to, like, deal with Stormfront, and the thing is, Kimiko's like, I'm gonna fucking stick my boot up your kitty, pretty much. And her and Stormlight pretty much start fighting her. I mean, granted, the other guys start shooting at her, but she fucking Palpatines their ass, and they're pretty much down. They're not dead, but they're kind of like, ooh. And also, by the way, we don't get a full load out of what Stormfront's powers are. She is durable because she can have rough fucking sex with Homelander and shit. Mind that they fucking crushed a dude's skull and then fucking like, fuck that. Fucked up against a brick wall. But, she can heal from the laser stiff. She can, like, has strength and everything. I don't know if her flight is because of her lightning abilities or what, but it's like, alright. She starts fighting them, and then she pretty much breaks Kimiko's neck, but it's like, that ain't done. That ain't the end of it. And she starts going after Stormlight, but then Queen Maeve comes out of bumfuck nowhere. Like, honestly, I have no idea why she popped up. It's just like A-Train giving him the Nazi shit that he took from the church shit. Plot demanded that shit come out, and they use it because it happened at that time. Queen Maeve, who has not been, to my knowledge, appraised of their plan to, like, go up against Homelander and Stormfront like this, knows where they're at and fucking comes out. And they're like, alright. And then we get Now, granted, they kicked this Nazi bitch's ass, but it's not really that good of a fight. It's not that good of an action scene. There's a lot of different cuts, and they pretty much just end up pretty much going kind of Tarantino death proof on her. And what I mean by that is the girls finally corner Kurt Russell and just like start kicking the shit out of him on the ground. But Stormfront runs away and gets out of there. She's still kind of fucked up. Now, the thing is the emotion of like you need that kind of journey of like that back and forth. Like she's fucking them up and then suddenly the tables turn. You want that gradual kind of fight back to occur. Otherwise it's like, oh, okay, they're just kicking her. It didn't feel like a good action scene. It's just like, alright. Now granted, at first when I was watching them, yeah, kick that Nazi bitch's ass and stop her Nazi bitch and shit. And it's just like, oh, okay, they're kind of just doing a Tarantino thing and then she just fucks off and runs. It's like, ah, fucking hell. So, we get towards the end and we see that they're running and then Stormfront pops up and is like trying to get Ryan back and Becca's like, stay away from him, you bitch. And she pretty much puts him up against, puts her up on a tree. Becca does stab out one of her eyes. I'm like, okay, why the fuck can she now lose an eye? She, now granted, is fucked up by superheroes, and that's fine, but it's like, okay, reasons. But she's pretty much trying to kill Becca, and it's pissing off Ryan, and he unleashes an eye beam. This is where I get into the whole shit of powers. Homelander at this point is destroying Edgar's team that was sent to get Ryan. He is using his heat-powered vision. The issue I have with the heat-powered vision is it acts more like a force-powered vision, if I can say that term. More like it's blunt force, whereas if it's heat, you would think it would fucking cauterize shit. But no, these people goop. I'm like, okay, effects people do need work. Goop kind of works. But I'm like, okay, that comes into issue here. Because Ryan unleashes this power blast. Now, if it's uncontrolled heat vision, it should pretty much fucking annihilate anything within the vicinity, not act similar to kind of like Cyclopses. Mm-hmm. Like, the Force should be burned, Butcher should be dead, Becca should be dead, Stormfront should be dead. No, what happens is Stormfront is found by Homelander later on missing all of her limbs, speaking in German, like goop, not goop, like things are falling off of her kind of thing. And it's like, oh, okay. And at this point we also get that Annie had gotten the backstory of like Huey's mom and Huey's, I have to bring this up because it's at some point later on, like before Huey's mom was into Billy Joel. They used to have dance parties, and then his mom left for some reason, whatever. Sometimes he hangs on to people too long. That's get bought in the end, but he's like, not you, of course, because she's confessing her feelings, and they, of course, get into a relationship while Huey kind of leaves the boys once this is all done. But, back to the matter at hand. I needed to get that out. Ryan has pretty much blasted, and Stormfront's pretty much fucking cracked, destroyed, and, like, fucked up. Becca, somehow, is, like, sliced on her throat and dying and saying, Billy, make sure he doesn't, that he knows it's not his fault and everything, and that he doesn't, it shouldn't be, and he's like saying he's sorry and everything, and I really feel for the kid because I'm like, okay, this kid's kind of cool, like kind of rooting for him. And then Becca dies. I'm like, how the fuck did she get cut in her neck, well, in her throat with a fucking heat ray beam? And it's like not like small, but it's like in an area that's like really kind of small, where a Stormfront is like fucked up. But, of course, we see Billy crying and everything, pretty much picks up a crowbar, and it looks like he's pretty much going to fucking go and kill the kid. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's a fucking kid, and he tried to fucking save everybody! So fuck off with him! Wasn't his goddamn intention! Asshole! But, then we see Homelander like, Ryan, come here. And he's like, fuck off, kid. Not fuck off, kid, but like, fuck off, Homelander. And he's like, nope. Now he's pretty much ready to go after him with a crowbar. And then Ryan's like, no, I'm going to go with Billy and everything. He's like, oh, okay. I think you're okay, kid. And then Queen Maeve appears again because the plot demands it and says, leave us all alone, or I put this information on the web and nobody loves you again. And, of course, that's his kryptonite. He wants people to love him. They, of course, leave, and Homelander's, like, freaking the fuck out. We see that he goes on to talk about that this is the 7, Starlight's been cleared, Queen Maeve pretty much has him by the curlies, and he's pissed off. You can see it in his face. The actor really does sell it. He's like, fuck. We see that Annie and Huey get together. We see that Mother's Milk goes back to His family, Frenchie and Kimiko, have their own kind of relationship thing going on, and it's like, all right, that's kind of cool. Butcher has this nice tender moment with Ryan. It's like, yeah, here's this thing. This is my good luck thing. Your mom gave it to me. It's a little kind of medallion of St. Christopher. Now it's going to protect you as well. And it really kind of sucks because I kind of really would have wanted Butcher to kind of look after Ryan because they put him in the CIA. It's like Mallory takes him to like keep him safe. I'm like, that didn't really work out with Homelander. And I'm like, what I really want to see is time skip forward. We see that Ryan has now been trained. He knows that killing is wrong and that he pretty much becomes their version of Superman, and he goes and fucking annihilates Homelander, doesn't kill him, doesn't incapacitate him, and it's like, yeah, because he learned everything from his mom and those around him and Billy, because Billy should be part of this kid's life, even though he pretty much thinks he's a bad father and pretty much hates Supes because of his own father. But he needed to get over that because of the promise he made to Becca. But we see all that going on. We see, I'm like, okay, we'll have to see how that works out. I don't think they'll go that route. I mean, they're going to have to go that route because in the comics, Black Noir was an insane clone of Homelander. Spoiler alert. But that's not going to affect this show because that can't be where this goes. I don't know what they're going to do. Hopefully they do use Ryan in that kind of capacity to take out Homelander because he just pretty much goes completely crazy at the end because somebody's pretty much got him over a barrel where he's thinking he's a god, and we see this season ends with him standing on top of a building like Batman saying, I can fucking do whatever I want, as he's jerking off above a city and being an asshole. So I was overall pretty disappointed because of how this whole season was structured, and that I don't think a lot of the character development that needed to happen did happen, and that the story movement was just scattered all over the place because they wanted to do all these things, riff on Batman versus Superman, and the Justice League, which I'm fine with, but don't do that at the expense of your story and your characters. And that I wish that there was kind of better action scenes because you want the story told through those actions, and that everything was pretty much just gross out moments. Again, I don't mind gross out moments. I want quality gross out moments where I'm like, Jesus Christ. But it was just more like, one after the other, one after another. And I think that's why they kind of wanted to do it more of a weekly kind of thing. So, I enjoyed it, but I'm pretty much done with this. I don't think that they're going to take the right lessons from this season or from the first season, and really, I hope they do better editing. I don't know. I'm going to really have to think about season 3. I mean, granted, they're going to have an actor in there that I kind of want to see how he does. But this still had the same problems as the first season, amped up because they're like, let's do all these gross out things. I'm like, fuck, fine, whatever. Just do it. They could redeem themselves with certain storyline things if they're able to pull them off. But we'll kind of have to see how that goes. So those are my opinions on the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.